So yeah, I'm just here to kind of get the crowd in, really. Rory's here to do the hard work. So welcome again. And I'll hand over to you.
Brilliant. Well, thank you everyone for joining today. I think I will just share my screen. There's not much going to go on the screen to begin with, but why not start as mean to go on. So I'm going to share my screen. So yeah, welcome everyone, and thank you for coming today. My name is Rory Neary, and I'm going to be talking you through just kind of how to make a very simple Power BI report. This is the organisation I work for, CPS. We deliver quite a bit of training to organisations in terms of the Power Platform. Power BI is one of those products that's really dear to my heart, because that's where I started out life with the Power Platform. So a bit about me. I'm going to jump out of this in a moment, but I'll just go through a few bits about me in a moment. But before I do that, this is where we're starting today's session, and it's on this, and it's to do with. We've got a list of 20,000 board games, and we're kind of going to try and find some good board games that maybe me and my wife could play, and we're going to use Power BI to enable us to be able to identify those games that little bit more easily. So in terms of me, about me, so my name's Rory Neary. I am an accountant by trade. I worked as an accountant for many years. I got into Power BI through the Excel route, and that's how I got to Power BI, because within Excel you have Power Query, and Power Query is the start point for your data transformation journey within Power BI. I've got a YouTube channel, got several hundred videos on there, some of them more out of date than others. And after I kind of moved into Power BI, I used the kind of YouTube channel and so on as my way of learning more about the product. And it was subsequent to that I then started working in the Parliamentary Digital Service and started working with Power Apps. And then I was fortunate enough to start training people all the way across Europe on the Power Platform, and it was really challenging. I can't believe I did it, and I was very fortunate to do it, especially if you think about pre-pandemic days and so on. So, but I love training people in the Power Platform. I'm definitely going to get Sarah to become one of my consultants. She's going to be amazing at it, definitely by the end of this hour. So I was a contractor for a number of years, and then I became a consultant, and I am a citizen developer, which, to be honest, many of us are really. There's actually not so many full-on developers out there. Great. So I'm just going to try and make sure that I can see. So if you've got any questions at any point during this, I may go quickly. I can't see the chat, by the way, Sarah, but I assume it's there somewhere.
We can use the Q&A section at the top.
That's fine. Oh, okay. Yeah. I guess that's what we're using this. Yeah. So please use the Q&A for any questions you might have. Feel free to interrupt me, because I'm probably going to go quite quickly on this. So the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to show you the data that we have within. I think it might be a CSV file or an Excel spreadsheet. So if you, so the start of this presentation, last week we did something on locations and we used a map visual, but this time round we're actually looking at quite a large data set. Well, it's a large-ish data set of lots and lots of board games. And we're going to see the extent to which we can use Power BI to enable us to maybe identify a board game that is more suitable for us, that's maybe the best game that we can play. So I'm just going to come off this. Oh, there we are. Yeah, so I've now managed to, yeah, I want to get the document we're going to work with up here. Now, the data set we're going to work with might find it doesn't open correctly. I need to just make sure it opens correctly. Let's just do this. Okay, yeah, it's fine. Sometimes if you open it not from within Excel, I need to navigate to this thing from within Excel. So good. Right, there we are. I think I personally find it quite useful to be able to go and have a look at the data that I've got before that data transformation process takes place. And the one that we're going to look at, I'm going to go. This is a funny little. Let me just check what this is. I actually did two things. Yeah, this is the one that we're going to have a play around with. So what we've got is a list of loads of board games. So if you can see that we've got 20,344 board games. You can see the year published, minimum players, maximum players. These are quite interesting things. If you think about how long you want to play the game for, knowing the play time is important. And bear in mind, this Gloomhaven one says 120 minutes. It actually takes 6 months to play this game, maybe up to a year. So it's, you're going to take things with a pinch of salt. Minimum age, quite useful. How many users have rated? And we'll be using this later on, because there are instances, if you actually look at this, where there's actually hardly any people that have actually rated the thing. So you can see there are some games there have only had like 99 ratings, whereas there are other games that have had 102,000 ratings. And to be honest, if you've had 99 ratings, I mean, I'm not being funny, but I'm really not. It can't be that great a game if only 99 people have decided to rate it. So you've got the rating average, but interestingly enough, if you actually look at this, it's 8,79. So it's not really written that well for us. This is the Board Game Geek rank, so we don't really need to know that too much. Essentially, it's some kind of multiple of the user ratings and how well they rated it and so on. Complexity is a really useful tool, because do you want to play a complex game at the end of a hard day? Maybe you want a simpler game that's shorter. And this thing that's got the owned users kind of useful, because it'd be nice to know that people actually owned the games that they said they were rating. So there is a thing on mechanics here. We're not really going to get into that, but some things, you might have a card. It might be a card game, or it might be some strategy game, or whatever it might be. And then the final column is kind of interesting. We won't use this today, but there's different types of games. But from a data set perspective, it's quite interesting that you've actually got strategy games that are also thematic games. You've got war games that are also strategy games, and so on. So you would have to do some interesting things with that if you wanted to play around with it. But this is not a session about how to work with Excel. This is a session about how to work with Power BI. I'm just going to press don't save on that. And I'm going to now fire up in fact, I'll show you the here's one I prepared earlier thing. And we're going to kind of go some way to put in this particular. Too much already. So I started. Look, I sort of thought, well, I'll just use the top 7,000 of them just to get started on this. And what you can see, it's a very simple. This is what we're going to build today. We'll go a long way to building this. So we've got an image here at the top. We've got a little card. We've got a table of data. We've got some filters going on. Not the most beautiful of reports. And you've also got a chart here. Now, say, for example, I was interested in saying, well, actually, the minimum number of players needs to be 2. Now, the maximum players needs to be 2 as well for a 2-player game. And that would filter it right the way down to a smaller set. But actually, you can still see there's 1,045 2-player games. And I can't remember what this filter is, actually. Oh, this is the amount of time it takes to play the game. So maybe you're saying, look, I only want a 60-minute game. So now it's going to be less things. We're down to 613 games. And I'm pretty sure on this, there is a whole bunch of them that are owned by people. Look at these. Some, the number of people that rated, there were 139 people rated this game. I'm saying, you know what? I kind of need to have a game where at least 5,000 people have actually rated it. Otherwise, really, is it that good a game? And if you do that, then the top game that you come out with is actually called Seven Wonders Duel, which is actually, it's like I feel like I'm advertising it. It's this game here, and it is actually a really, really good two-player game. So we can see that it actually came out in 2015. So it's kind of interesting because you sort of think, well, how long has this game been around and so on. You can see the years that these games came out in. And if we actually brought the year, I'm so sorry, I get geeked out on this sort of thing, year published, drag it onto the screen there. It's actually just gone into the wrong spot. Some of the year published, I don't want that. I'll just do no, don't summarize. And then what you can do then is maybe we can sort it by year published, minus 3,000. That'd be interesting, actually. Do you know, I think the reason why they've done that is because it's like a game that's donkey's years old. But anyway, so you can sort it by the year published as well. You can sort it in all sorts of ways, but you can see that actually maybe you want a more recent game than some of these ones here, and maybe there's one that came out quite recently. Now, bear in mind this data set came from an online data source, so it's not actually the most up-to-date data. I think it goes to about 2021. But actually, and then what we could do is say, for example, we thought, hey, do you know what? I wonder what this Watergate thing is, because actually it's 2019. 8,892 people have actually looked at it. So maybe we'd want to have a look at this thing and see, what is this game? So we can just, hit the URL, boop, in we go. We can actually have a look at this thing. It's a two-player game. What sort of game is it? Hide or expose the greatest American political scandal in a tug of war for evidence. Honestly, I don't think me and my wife will be playing that. She, I don't know, it's not a kind of thing really. So this gives you a bit of a feel for where we're heading with this, but we still haven't actually started building anything. And I know Sarah is desperate to get going on this because her Power BI, she's been in recruitment for absolutely ages. She's been doing all these sessions, and their only real reason for doing it is she wants to become a Power Platform developer. You can see you're really sure in a geek, Sarah. So what we're going to do is we're going to have a go at creating this report. We know we've got data and so on. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go on to a report, which is just a blank report. It's not had anything done to it and so on. And I'm going to get started on this. Now, I know it's an Excel workbook. Now, when I train people in Power BI, I say to them, okay, guys, this is the only time I'm going to allow you to connect to Excel using Power BI. You can connect, but just the only time you can connect to it in this way, because you should not keep your data on your hard drives in order to build your reports. They need to be sitting somewhere like SharePoint, that sort of thing. But this is a demo, and we have to cut corners on demos. And so one of the corners that we're going to cut is that we're actually just going to hit this, go to get this Excel workbook. But bear in mind, look at all these different data sources that you can connect to. You can connect to hundreds of data sources. So you can see, loads of them here. You can kind of go Power. In fact, it won't say, it'll be Dataverse. So Dataverse, you can connect to Dataverse. You can connect to SQL, but I always kind of jump in this route. Oh, SQL. So you can see that you connect to lots of different places, and one of those places is Excel. I'm getting a little bit of lag here. So you can see there's an Excel workbook. You can click on there and you can click connect. And then what we'll do is we'll navigate to our spreadsheet. So I'm going to select open on that, and let's just see what it pops up. I can't remember if it's a table that's sitting inside. I think it is. This is the only time from a demo point of view that it will go a little bit strange because it always does it this way when you're trying to share things. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to click on transform data. and then we'll go into this Power Query experience. So Power Query is essentially a data transformation tool. And what we can see here probably isn't an awful lot of data transformation that we need to do. However, I know for an absolute fact that within this data set, there is more than one instance, for example, of certain games. They literally brought the same game out, but there's version 2000 and there's version 2001. So what I think that I'll probably do is I will create a field which actually joins these things together. I think that'll be a good start. I'm not really going to use the mechanics. I'm not going to use the domains, but I do know if you look at these, do you remember the rating average had 8,79 and it's converted 8,79 into 879. So instead of the rating being 8.79, which is what we want, the value is 879. So what I'm going to do with those is we'll just have to see about this. Transform, let me see, go on to there. Scientific, actually, no, it won't do it for one field. So if I go to standard and I go multiply, and I wanted to multiply this by 0. I think it's 0.01. And if I click on that, so this is me transforming the data, and I'm also going to go onto this thing here, and I'm going to multiply this one by 0.01 and click OK on that. Then that is the values that these should have had in the first place. We've got our own users. We can see the data types they are. They're pretty good. As I say, this ID is really useful to us because that's the ID that we need in Board Game Geek. So when we create our URL, what I'm actually going to do now is I'm going to add a new column, which is a combination of the game, the name of the game, and the year it was published. So I'm going to go to add column, and what I'm going to do a custom column, and I'm going to call it game year, and I'm going to say, well, actually, you're going to be name ampersand quote space, and then an open brackets, and then do another ampersand, and I will then go into, there's a year published. Put another ampersand in, and then quote, and then John's only come to see me fail. So this should produce another column. Yeah, okay, fine. I got that wrong. That's fine. It's easy enough to do. So I can, in fact, it's quite a good demo because you can then see, well, actually, where's the error on this thing here? And I'm not really seeing, it's not obvious to me where the error is. So do name and that, and, but you know what I'm going to do? It's actually good. The errors are quite handy. Sometimes you can find yourself, yeah, okay. So we know that the error is just after then. And well, this will be mysterious, won't it? Because year published. Okay, all I've done is copy and paste that in. Well, let's see what the error is. I like this, actually. We can't apply an operator to types, text, and number. Okay. Nice. Oh, come on. Might be upset because they didn't put those spaces in. Let's see what happens. It definitely doesn't love me. And yeah, published.
It's maybe John's influence, Rory.
It is John. He just came in there, and then I'm going to get rid of this bit here, okay? But this, I actually think that this problem-solving element is an important part of this, of what we do here anyway. Definitely, this is going to annoy me now. There are other ways of doing this anyway. Do that. And you can see that if you're trying to troubleshoot something, then click OK on that. Oh, it's definitely upset. It's definitely upset. There's a part of me wonders if this quote is funny, but I don't think it is. But actually, there is more than one way to skin a cat. So I will. Do you sure you want to exit? Yeah, change to be lost. I'm going to actually ditch that one, and I'm going to go and then remove that. And what I'm actually going to do this time round is I am going to just concatenate the two together. So I'm going to do that. We're doing an add column. You've got an option to merge the columns and separator. Well, why don't we do a separator of a space? In fact, I quite like to do a pipe because nobody ever has pipes in their things. So I'm going to do space, pipe, space, and then I'm going to call it game year. So this is another technique for doing the same thing. And so this time we've got the name of the game, a pipe, and then the year in which the game came out, which will make life a little bit more straightforward later on, because we don't want to have duplicates of the names, because it doesn't really work very well. So we've gone through this process of data transformation. I'm going to keep that name there. I think it'll be handy for us in the future. The year published arguably isn't an actual number. Would we ever want to actually add the years together? Probably not. So on this home thing, then what I would do is I would go and now that I'm looking for it, can't see anything. There we are, data type. And I'm just going to say, well, do you know what? You're actually... I think we'll say it's text, and let's just see what happens later on. And I will go, and so then we go to the next page. So this is extract, transform, and load. We extracted it. It came from Excel. We've done the transformation process because we've added a field in, and then we're going to do the load process. So let's do close and apply. So what it'll do is it'll whiz around. In fact, there's one thing that I didn't do, and it is kind of handy. We will do this, because I'll redo it. I haven't limited this to 20,000 to like 7,000 rows of data. We've got a much bigger data set here. We've got all of the data, so it doesn't really make a whole heap of difference to me anyway. So you can see we've got all of the fields here, and if you actually go look, you select the ID field. This is quite interesting. I know it's a bit sad, but look at this. 20,343 rows and 20,328 distinct values. That would annoy me, because that means that we have some rows with the same ID. Now there are techniques for finding these, but at Power BI, look, you can see the no, I can't work it out. I bet there'll be some nulls in there. Yeah, there we are. They are blanks. Yeah, so you can see there's a bunch here that are actually, because they don't have an ID, they kind of create a bit of a problem within this. And actually, if you think from a data transformation point of view, maybe we want to just get rid of the ones which don't have an ID. Maybe they're not good. Maybe it's not good data. In fact, it won't be good data. But you never know, it might be really, might be really new or something like that. But you can see, so there's an element of poor quality data. I could go in, I could correct that, and so on. And look at these. Some of them don't have mechanics. They don't even have any people that voted for them. So I'm just gonna go onto this thing, and where's my board game geek rank? I'll just do that, and then I'm going to sort it ascending. Okay, so now we've just gone back to the way in which it was sorted before. You can see okay, good. And if we go on to the relationships, we have no relationships between this table and anything else. It doesn't really matter that much. This is just a straightforward demo. And so what we're going to do is we're going to start building, because I know Sarah's impatient. She wants to get her job application in for the interview she's got next week for the Power BI consultant role, and she's going to be demonstrating this. So what we're going to do first, maybe we will just have a little bit of fun and do something easy. So I'm going to insert and jump onto here and go onto image, and we'll pop an image in. I will go to my downloads, and we'll just drop this little fella in here. And there's my board game geek thing there. Okay, nice and sweet. Maybe we'd make this we could make this, we could do a navigation experience if we wanted to. but we're in demo land here. We ain't got time. So there's Board Game Geek there. Now what we can do is we can maybe create a table of data. So what we're going to do is we're going to do name. So I'll pop the, I actually quite like the name year game. I called it game year. Pop that in there. It's going to guess what we are trying to do, which is pretty good because it is a table that we want, but it could have been something else. What else do we want? We want the rating. Rating's quite good. Pop that in there. Yeah. Oh, sorry. So there goes the rating in there. So let's just sort it by the rating. So yeah, so you can see there are some instances, and the issue with this here is there is more than one Kahoots 2018 game. So if we actually brought in the ID in there, pop that in there, what you'd actually find is there's actually, it's gone count of ID, but actually I don't want the count of ID. I actually want the don't summarize version. And then you would find that you've actually got one instance of everything. I could go through to, I don't want to add up all the ratings. It makes no sense whatsoever, but let's not worry too much about that at the moment. And I do think the number of users, owned users, that's a handy little one to pop in there because, are we interested in the ones, it got a 9.58 rating by, the person that made it, his mum, his dad, his mum again, because she's got 2 accounts. So maybe it's not really a 9.58 rate. Do you know what? We're gonna have to look at this Arun game. I know Sarah wants you. I'll get it for you for Christmas because it's 9.58. It must be brilliant. And so that minimum number of players is really useful. Min players. Just drop that out, and then let's go to max players. Can me and Fran play this game? Can we play this game? Oh, 2 and a 5 player. Okay, so I want to go. So okay, this Arun game. This game is an awesome game. In fact, it's year 0, so they don't even have a year. It's that good. It doesn't have a year. But maybe we want to actually. Do you remember we had that URL where we could get from this to the Board Game Geek place? That's what we're going to do now. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go over to Board Game Geek. Oh, there we are, Board Game Geek. And what you will find is if you go onto this and then back onto Power BI and onto there, and then go into the data model, what we can do with that is we can right click on that and we can do a new column. And with that new column, we are going to do URL BGG, which is URL Board Game Geek equals quote something quote. In fact, I'm going to get rid of the number and I'm going to use the number with an ampersand and then ID. So if I select enter on that, it will create the field for me. Now, the reason why this won't work at the moment, let's just drop this in here. Type in URL. URL Board Game Geek. Let's just drop you in there. The reason why this doesn't work at the moment is because it doesn't understand it's a URL. But we can change all that because we can go onto that field, click on there, go onto the data category under categorize, and then go on and tell it that it's actually a web URL. It doesn't feel like anything's happened, apart from when you look at this, and now you can actually go and select it. And in theory, it's going to take us to this Arun game, which it does. How cool is that? You have to admit that was actually good. Yeah, so we've gone to this. This is a new kind of dungeon crawl with a vocal app that evolves with you. That sounds weird. Okay. Enter the world of Arun and roam through its darkest dungeons. Got pictures for it, all sorts of things. Bit weird, really. This one, bear in mind, this data is actually more up to date than anywhere else. They've got all sorts of things here. Okay, good. So back onto Power BI, and this URL is a little bit long in here. And so what I always do is I go onto here and just type in URL, and then you just click on URL icon, and that URL that you had before just turns into a nice little link. So then what I can do is go onto the visual here, And I'm maybe just going to pull this one up. I'll pop it to the front there. That's a nice way of laying this out. But it still doesn't get me to the point where I've got a game that I can, suggest that me and my wife play, because we're two players, aren't we? We want something we need to be able to filter this thing down a little bit. So what I'm going to do here, in fact, the game weight is, I don't know if they call it, it's like complexity there. Pop that in there, because the complexity of game is a big deal. Like if you've got a really complex game, then you may not want to play it at a certain time. And although that we're talking about, this is fun, just talking about games and so on, but everyone's got their data sets. Everyone has got things that's more important in their data set. So what we're going to do is we're going to do things like, we're going to say, well, okay, we want a two-player game, and we want it to have been owned by a certain number of players, because it's no point in having ones that are owned by 23 people or 10 people in this case, which just seems rather sad. And we want to make sure that, it's as I say, two-player game, and maybe make it so that the average rating is above 7, say, something like that. So what we'll do is I'm going to click on a bit of white space there and then pop a filter in. And what I'll do is I'm going to do the first one. I'll put the, I'll do a very straightforward one. Let's start the one for the complexity average there and pop that in there. Now it's going to give us a range, but actually, typically what you do is you'd make it greater than or equal to something. So what we can do with this is greater, no, it's not that. I'm going to go into the slicer settings. There we are. And we want a greater than or equal to. And so I'm going to say, well, actually, I want you to be greater than or equal to 7. In fact, what I'll do before that is quite a useful thing. I'm going to click on a bit of white space there, and oh crumbs, I didn't mean to do that. I'm not doing Q&A, don't worry. We ain't doing that. Yeah, I'm not doing that. That's what happens if you double click on the on there. Drag that on there, and it's given me a count of the IDs, but I don't want a count. I actually want a card which has got the ID. So this means that we are looking at 20,000 lines of data, and it's quite useful to know that that's what we're looking at. I don't really like how that's formatted. I want to just see the value. It's doing the auto units, and I just kind of want none. I just want it to look like that. Display units. Yeah, there are ways of, I'd prefer a comma in there if I'm honest, but that's okay. So I'm now going to say, well, actually, I only want ones that are 7 or better, because I'm fussy. 7. What? Oh, it's not 7 because it's between 0 and, hold on. Yeah, okay, this is complexity we're talking about here. I was thinking about the rating. So I want it to be, in fact, you usually want it to be lower than, you want it to be a lower complexity. So I'm going to make that to be less than or equal to. So how complex do we want to make it? Less than or equal to, I don't know, 3, say. So now we've got 17,983 remaining of the ones that we started off with. And I'm going to just I need a bit of space on this thing here, and I'm going to put another filter in. I'm going to say what the maximum players are, and I'm going to turn that into a filter, and I want that to make that slicer settings. I want to make it less than or equal to, and I'm going to say, well, let's just say 100 for the moment. Be quite amusing, but so it doesn't really change that much. But let's just make it less than or equal to 6, say. Okay, we've got less people going in there, and I'm going to drop another one in, and I'm going to make that greater than or equal to for the minimum number of players. So min players, pop that in there, in you go. And I'm going to say the minimum, and I'm going to make that greater. Oh, it's under slicer settings. Greater than or equal to. And we're going to say, well, actually, it's a 2-player game. So now what we're going to do is we're going to find the out and out 2-player games. So now we've got a much smaller list, but if you actually look at these ones here, this one's got only 50 people own this one. And I'm thinking, do you know what? I don't want to be a guinea pig for all this. I can't be there with the glass of wine and it's all sorted and you've got the game and say, I've got this great game, it's awesome. And actually you are the 51st person to play it. So that's not what I want. I'm now going to say, how many got? We've got owned users. Drag that, pop it on the screen. And what we're going to do is we're going to make it greater than or equal to. So we're going to go onto there and we need to make it a filter. So pop on there, make it a slicer, and then we'll go on to the settings and we'll go slicer settings and we'll go greater than or equal to. And I'm thinking, look, if it's a decent game, 5,000 people should have played it. So remember we started off at 20,387 or something like that. We're now down to 87. That's kind of useful looking now. And in fact, the game that does pop up is actually this game. This is the one that pops up. Where is he gone? Where is he in? He's in there. He's in there somewhere. I keep disappearing. So this is the game that now pops up. And that's pretty good. You know, it's got the complexity average. Let's see what happens if we make it more complex. How many quite a few more games actually. I'm a little surprised at that. And you know, but you can do lots of different kind of filters now. Twilight Struggle. I wonder what that one is. That one's a little bit. Let's see how complex it is. 3.59. And whereas Seven Wonders Duel is 2. Let me tell you, it is blooming complicated, the Seven Wonders game, once you get going on it. So this is, oh god, can't imagine playing this. It just I'm putting off it already. No thanks. So but think about this in terms of our business value. We've now got down to a much smaller number of things. This could have been people, it could have been illnesses, it could have been anything. And we've now got down to, you know, 104. It's still really not particularly manageable. You know, maybe that final thing that we do on this is actually just pop a little year filter in. Year, game year. In fact, I don't know if I messed this up because, no, that's the wrong one. Year published. Now, I have made a mistake on this because I made this. Let's change that to be a filter. Yeah, it doesn't understand that the year is a number, so it can't do greater than or equal to and all that sort of stuff. So if we actually go onto this and right click on it and then do edit query, we can actually say, actually, do you know what? You're a number. You know, so we're going to jump back into the query and we're going to say, well, actually, I changed it to be type text, and I'm going to get rid of that and zap it again. Close and apply, and then the way in which that filter behaves will then have the capacity to change. So it's going to be whiz around. It'll still probably look like this, but in actual fact, we'll be able to now go on to here, slicer settings, and we can make it, I'm going to say greater than or equal to, and I'm going to say, well, you probably need to be greater than or equal to, let's say 2018. So remember, we start off at 20,000 lines of data. We've actually only got 3 of them left, and I can do 3. I can definitely do 3. So I think that's a pretty cool sort of user story in terms of or a user journey to get to a smaller number of things. And I am looking at the time, and it is 4:10. What I had wanted to do, and I'll just go a little bit of a way along doing this. I'm just going to pop in a little chart, and let me just see what we can do here. I'm going to cheat because I'm going to go and have a look on the other screen. So I'm going to just try and pop in this little chart that I've got down below. Okay, so I'm going to pop in a chart. It's going to make it this one here, make it a bit bigger, because it is actually quite nice to do this. And on the x-axis, I'm going to do rating. I'm going to rating average, and I'm going to put that onto my y-axis. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to put the name on that. game. Got my game year thing, pop that in on the x-axis. So I know we've got 3 games here. And then what I'd probably be tempted to do is, and let me see if I can go on here and then go onto the colors, and then go on to, this is actually quite neat if I get this going. Data labels. Now formatting. Yeah, there's my values. Let's just jump on here, colors. Now let's jump onto this and see if we can get a bit of a gradient going on. So we're going to make the lowest value is going to be, I don't know. Actually, I didn't want the rating average. No, we know what that's going to be anyway. That's fine. We're not going to use rating average. We're actually going to use the complexity, and we're going to make the highest values can be red because it's more complex, and the lowest value can be a green color. Look at that, it doesn't even have a green. Let's make it a green, and then, oh, didn't do it. Obviously don't know how to do this. Good. Slightly strange gradient in all fairness, but in theory, the way in which this will, the gradients will work will be that they will change to tell us which one is more complex than another one. So, but if we look at this and we actually change the year published on, let's make it sort of 2000, say. So some fairly modern games, we can actually see that we can see where these complex games are, because we can see that although it's got a high rating, it's actually complex. And maybe, well, there we are, 7 Wonders has appeared again. But actually there's that Watergate one, and we saw that before as well. And if we select on that one, we know that we can actually go and select it, and we're actually going to take us off to, it's going to take us off to where we need to go to so we can review it a bit further. And I would thoroughly recommend that technique for taking yourself out of Power BI and into something else so you can, you know, get further into it, whether it's your orders or your cases or whatever it might be. So I haven't saved this. So this is a desktop file save as, and I'm going to call it BGG demo 1. And I'm going to select save on that. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to publish that to my Power BI workspace, because this whole time that we've been working, we've actually been doing that on our desktop. So I'm going to select publish on that, and I'm going to put it into my Learn workspace, because that's where I throw a lot of these sorts of things. And it's now publishing it up into the workspace. So remember, this report doesn't really have the capacity to refresh because the data is just on a spreadsheet on my computer, and it's not a very good way of doing things. So now what I can do is just, if I can just make sure that I'm all logged in correctly, if I select this, we're now going to move into the Power BI service. And has anyone seen this thing come up? I feel like this is like really, really up to date, by the way, but we've got this new thing called Fabric, and Fabric is, there's a layer that is going to exist above Power BI, and it's going to be a layer that does all sorts of, it brings together data transformation, data science, artificial intelligence, and so on. And the name of that thing is Fabric, and it's kind of just appearing in lots of different places, and it has done very recently. So we're now looking at this within the Power BI service. And once you're in the Power BI service, you can do things like share it, and you can share it with someone in your organization. Pop that in there, and then you can send that to them. You do lots of things from within here. You can then start to think, well, where am I gonna publish this thing? Am I gonna put it in Teams and so on? But I think that's kind of a job for another day. So I would like to now open this up for any questions that people might have. I have worked really quickly. If you want me to make any changes to the Power BI report, I can show you that. Yeah, so any questions that people might have.
Have a look in the Q&A. There's a couple in there.
Oh, okay.
John's had to jump off. I saw someone come and grab him, but this is recorded, so he will get your answer if you can answer that question.
So I'll work from the bottom.
Please.
Oh, there's an echo on my voice.
I think your voice is fine. It's fine, my end.
So Joe said, is there a function where you can combine the min max fields in your dashboard so you only have two play? Yes, you're absolutely right. Yeah. I mean, so what you could do on that, it's quite a good question actually, because I was thinking that the other day. So what Joel is asking is, it's a bit of a fiddle, isn't it, to say, give me a 2-player game? Wouldn't it be better if you actually had, hey, this is an out and out 2-player game, and can we make a field within there that just effectively it's like a yes, no? And so if we want, I think that's a really good question. So I'm going to go on to our report, go into there, and if we go on to here, and now you can put your Excel head on, and I'm just going to squidge this one up a little bit. Unfortunately, this field is massive. But essentially, we're really saying that min players and max players are 2. Just bear in mind with this specific scenario, just because something has got a minimum players and a maximum players, you can have 2 players, you play a game that's a 4-player game. So you have to be a little bit careful with what you wish for. But if I wanted to do that, I would go onto here, right click, new column, and I could say is to player, and equals if min players equals 2 and max players equals 2, then I'll do a quote yes, otherwise quotes no. But bear in mind, it does kind of limit us in terms of how we kind of work with this. So now what we can do is we can actually hit the drop down. We can see there's yeses and nos, and then what we can do is we can sort of pop a little filter in there, and in it goes. It is a bit small, this one, and I'm going to call it is 2-player. Pop that in there. And of course, it is 2-player because we've actually selected this. What I'm going to do on that is just squidge that one up there, and I'm going to put the maximum and minimum players is 0, and the maximum players, let's say, is 10, and then we should end up with a much bigger number, which we do. There's 870 of those, but if I kind of go is 2-player yes, we should be back down to the same number we had before. So hopefully that answers your question, Joel. I've got John. So John has seen the sessions make it look so easy, crop change. How long does it take to get to this level? Yes, it's one of, I think the answer is probably 3 days won't do it, just because, but what am I doing here? I'm working with quite a nice data set. There's nothing wrong with this data set. There's no problems with this data set at all. So you could probably do this fairly easily. The challenge comes when you're trying to do it in the real world and you're trying to connect to things that are tricky to connect to, and maybe you've got your users, and where are you, who's developing this thing, and how are you going to get it to refresh? And so there are features that make it quite complicated. What we are doing is fairly straightforward, but actually I think that's really the thing, John. It isn't that complicated of itself. I think that you can, I think people should use it. It's a good product. They should use it because it is easy to use. It's definitely easier than Excel to create graphics that look like that. So yeah, there's cool stuff you can do with it. I mean, this is I never created any graphics within Excel. I still don't know how to create a graph in Excel. So this is a great tool. Excellent. Oh, got some new posts. Recording posted. Yeah, cool. Yeah, any other questions? Because I'm just going to start. I'm going to probably just soup the report up in a minute. If Any other changes that people would like me to make to the report? Please just pop them in the chat. Clear your microphones. Happy to do things. Have you got any specific issues that you've had with building Power BI reports? You know, there are lots of considerations. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to do one thing. I think this is really super cool. So on the other report that we had, in the example I showed, I'm taking a bit of a chance here. I showed that you could hover over and you can actually see things within here. And I think that's quite a neat little feature. So I thought what I might do is I might just see if I can get that going. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to hit the plus on here, and I'm going to go onto this and I'm going to type in tool tip, because this page is a tooltip page now. That's what it is. That's what its aim is in life. And I'm going to look at game. This is my game year thing, because it's quite hard to actually see what was going on. And I'm going to make it a bit smaller, and I'm also going to turn it into a card. Now, the other thing that I'm going to do is I'm going to change the size of this, and I'm going to make it something like 20, which means it's kind of a bit more readable. Make it 15, because there probably will be some long ones there. And I'm going to change that, move that category label as well. And you know, you could bring in some other features to do with the. You can actually pop this one in here. This is quite a nice little one. This. Pop you in there. Oh, I made a mistake. Oh dear. I definitely have made a mistake, and we could change this one here. Okay, hold on. Within a sec. Yeah, I've just destroyed it. So game year, pop that back in again. Yeah, need to change the size of it. And yeah, it seems to have just gone a little bit strange. Hold on. Oh, there it is. It had disappeared. Right, lovely. So I'm going to change this into a different type of card, pop that in there, and then what I'm going to do is I'm going to do complexity average, pop you in there, and don't worry about the numbers. There won't be a problem in a moment. And then I don't know, what shall I say? Minimum age, something like that. Pop that in there. Yeah, so we've got the minimum age, and what I'll do on that is I will do don't summarize and don't summarize. That's fine. Yeah, don't worry about the fact that it's kind of got all these things here. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to put the ID in there, Board Game Geek, into the tooltip fields, and then I'm also going to put this into here. Yeah, it's not going to work yet. I think I need to pop this into here, and then it kind of wakes up. Nope. No, it's typical. It's kind of demo demons. Oh, clearly I did it earlier on. So let's have a quick look at this one here. Got the tooltip, and yes, I need to put name. Okay, fine. I'm going to go into here, back in here, onto my tooltip. I'm going to do name year, game year, and then pop that in there, and then put it onto the tooltip thing, get rid of you. And what we should see, oh, there we are. Isn't that cool? I think that's rather nice. And you could extend this even further, so you could put more details in there, and then I think this is rather nice. Can you guys hear me okay? Fine. Because my phone, my earphones are just good. Brilliant. Sarah, how's that? Any more questions?
There's a couple more questions in the Q&A there.
Oh, web URL. Yeah, web URLs. I love doing the web URL thing. So what I'll do is I'll recreate the way in which we do that. There are some little techniques that you need to use. So I'm just going to jump onto the data view, and I am going to you can right click on the table, click a new column, and and you can then, I went onto Board Game Geek, so I went onto there, and I went to this thing here, and I copied the URL. Now, so I'm just going to break this down a little bit further, and I'm just going to do BGG URL BGG v2, and then do quote, paste it in, quote. Now, at the moment, this is going to be just one URL. We know it's not going to work properly, but remember, you must use this. You must convert it to be a web URL. That's the first thing that you must do. Now, and then if we just jump onto this thing here, then if I go onto there and I drag URL, there's my v2 one. I'm going to drag that one there. What you'll see is it won't go to the right place. It'll go to the same place every time, this Arun thing. Okay, so what we need to do is we need to fix it so that it's dynamic, or at least it changes based on what you selected, because they're going to go to the same place every time. So to do that, we can just jump on there, and I'm going to now delete all the way back here, quote, ampersand, and I'm going to call it ID, and then what it's going to do is it will then add on the URL of the thing that we are currently selected on, which means that when we go onto this thing here and then go onto the URL of BGGV2, it'll now take us to the right place. Cool. A two-player game. See, Fran wouldn't play that either. 180 minutes. There's no way she's playing that. There's no way on earth she's playing that. How did that even appear there? Complexity average. She will not be playing a 3-hour game. So that clearly needs to be fixed at once. So yeah, you can see that there are some features of the games that you need to, that we can filter this down further. It's quite realistic to do length, time, is it? Playtime. Pop it in there, and then just turn it into a filter, ka-ching, and then what we'll do is slice the settings. That is it, less than or equal to, and I'm going to say it should be less than or equal to 60 minutes. So we've gone from 80 records down to 65. We've definitely got two-player games because we've got our little thing there. I don't want a particularly complex game, so let's make it 3.5, hit that there. So we go from, okay, it hasn't really changed that much. Let's make it a 3. Okay, it doesn't really change that much. Yeah, playtime 60 minutes. Jaipur, that's quite a good one, actually. I hear, apparently. Look at that. Wait, for 1.47, apparently it's dead easy. So, yeah, cool. So, what do you think, Sarah?
I love it. If you could do Excel 101 for me, I might get there with Power BI.
I will make you burn your Excel spreadsheets.
But that was fantastic.
You can't use Excel anymore. It's yeah.
I don't. Reporting's definitely not my strong suit, but no, that was really good, really interesting to see some of the board games there as well, because I haven't heard of all of those. I'm a secret board game geek.
Yeah, there's a lot of them out there. I played some. In fact, there's that one that I was telling you about, that Scout game. It's really, really good. Really good. It's the most expensive small game I've ever seen. It's only about this big, and it's 20 quid. But it was the most fun game. It was really, really good. Probably because I actually understood it. That's why I liked it.
Yeah. Some of them are a bit overcomplicated.
Yeah.
Has anyone got any final questions before we wrap up? Oh, Joel had one, Rory, about the like a colour-blind friendly palette. Do you know anything about availability of that?
Yeah, I think that you can do theming. Themes. Bear in mind, I've obviously accessible themes, so you can actually choose different themes. Of course, I've gone and overridden the themes because I've just literally chosen, themes according to. I've just literally chosen the theme. So this is an accessible theme. this one here. But it won't really change that much because there's very little color in the this at this point in time. Whereas if I actually went into this thing here and I,
you've stopped sharing.
Oh, sorry. Yeah, so I went on to themes, theme, and then you've got different themes that you can choose from. I might try this one actually. Not very excited by that, if I'm honest. Kind of like, it's a bit whatever, really. Yeah, you can kind of fill your boots with, with however much of this sort of thing you want to do. It's hard to not want to fiddle around with it as soon as you see it, though. This is only a demo. Yeah. Yeah, so you do have these themes available to you, and it's worth looking around at those. But that's a whole school of, typically, you're looking for the intensity of the color. So kind of intensities of black and white are actually quite good. Whereas this particular theme, going from blue to green to red is probably actually one of the worst ones you can actually do from an accessibility point of view. And you'd probably be far better off just going from light, from a lighter color to a darker color. That would be a much more accessible way of approaching that.
So yeah, the recording's will be available tomorrow on our events page. So there are people that have asked that have had to sort of drop off or come at the last minute, so we'll share that link again. But yeah, thank you very much.
No problem. All right then. Well, thank you everyone, and you have a lovely rest of the day.